Sif Lamed Zayin. Sif Lamed Zayin, we move into the world of Kli Rishain, Hagasa, etc. Says the Shemiras Shabbos, Sif Lamed Zayin, Habachisha. Bachisha means stirring. Habachisha b'tavshil shein vusha called tzarkai, to stir food which is not fully cooked, v'hubikli rishain, as in a first kli, asura mishum bishul. You're not allowed to do it because you are cooking the food. It's not fully cooked. As you start it, you cook it. V'asur gam, and it's also asur as ha'yitzai shel tavshil kazeh mikli rishain bezuz kli kolshi. You're also not allowed to take the food out of the kli, because as you remove it from the kli, you will be causing it to move and thereby potentially causing it to cook further. So if your food is not fully cooked, you have a serious problem on your hands. In Haris Adihei, he points out that it might only be the Rabbanan, but Lamaisa it's still us. Ulachain, and therefore, Tavshel she'inu mavusha called sarkai. If I have a food which is not fully cooked, and it's sitting on a fire, even if the fire is covered, Asura abachisha, you're not allowed to stir it. You're also not allowed to take out food from the pot with a kli. Vuadin, and so too, don't think it's only because it's al gabish. Even if you take it off the ish, and still, and it's still hot enough to reach it is also ulcer. So when your food is not fully cooked, basically, you should not be touching it. So let's say you took off the food and it's not fully cooked. What do you do now? Your shtickle stuck between a rock and a hard place. You took off your food and it's not fully cooked. You can eat food that's not fully cooked, just not fully cooked. You can eat it. To be a half cooked, to be a third cooked, it's definitely edible, it's just not fully cooked. It's not a crazy case. Mutter lishbeich benachas. It's just a big problem. By the way, it's unfortunately a very common case that people take cholent on Friday night and it's completely not fully cooked. The beans are hard. Now they're like, okay, no, it's not so bad. They rather have not cooked cholent on a Friday night than not have cholent at all. That's usher gomer. Usher to take it off, usher to take out the cholent, usher to stir it, usher to put it back. Each step is potentially a deraisa. But let's say you took it off now and you want to what do you do? He says, you could pour slowly, pour out the food slowly, into another pot, after you take it off the fire. You could slowly pour it from pot to pot, and then you'll be able to take it out. Okay, basically you're in a serious problem if it's not fully cooked. Sif Lamed Ches. Vechmir Chachamenu. So Lamed Zayin basically was one big disclaimer. If your food is not fully cooked, please do not touch. Now Lamed Ches is where things get practical. Because now the question is, what about when it is fully cooked? So says Sif Lamed Ches. Vechmir Chachamenu Zal Vasur Sabachisha Bigderim Elizagabi Aish. Chazal were machmir, and they forbade mixing food on the fire. Af betav shel shmavusha called tzarka, even when it's fully cooked. So if you have your fully cooked cholent on the stove, on the crock pot, and you want to open it up and stir it, that is an iser dira banan. And they as well were machmir. You cannot take out the food with utilizing a utensil. Kasher, when it's on the fire, afilu mechusa, even when it's covered. So if you have your cholent, number one, what are you not allowed to do to it when it's on the fire? You're not allowed to stir it. Number two, what are you not allowed to do from it? You're not allowed to take out cholent. Even if it is covered, they are both forbidden. Now, we're not going to really go into it, but in the Aras Sadites, he has kama v'kama kashas, and we'll just point out this halacha is very difficult to understand. We'll say it in our nusach, because the food is fully cooked. What in the world is the problem? What is the problem? There's no Isser Bishul potential. So let's even further, and we'll see he gets even more crazy. The Kitzid Yaser, what should he do? Yaser Sekeder Min Eisha Mechusa, take the pot off the fire, Yachzikenu biyadeh, hold in your hand, Yoitzi Menuk Teisarko Bezes Kli, take out what you want, or Yishach Menu Teikayr, pour it out, V'yoshav V'yachzer Sekeder Lemukayim, and then you can put the pot back. But that's all you're allowed to do. You're not allowed to do anything else. You're not allowed to even stir it. You're not allowed to stir it. It's off the flame and it's fully cooked. Yes, you're still not allowed to stir it. Why this is all true? This is the famous Gezira of Hagasa. This is a Excuse me, I should be a little more careful. I should be a little more careful. What did he just say? Let me not put extra words into what he just said. He just said you're not allowed to stir it on the flame. You're not allowed to take food when it's on the flame. You're not allowed to stir it or take food even if it's on a covered flame. If you take it off the flame, what are you allowed to do? Take out the food. Now, what about stirring it off the flame? So if you look in the middle of Aras Sadites, he points out, he says, smack in the middle. If you told me that it's also to stir a pot that's on the fire, I feel a tashel vishikal tzarki even if it's fully cooked. Therefore, it should also be aser when you take the pot off the flame. If you're going to put it back on, ad kan devarav. So he's asking a kasha that it should be aser. Now, there's a drop of background needed over here that is it aser to stir the pot when it's off the flame? So he didn't say that. And the reason is it's not aser. The Shabur writes it's toiv yaseh. It's better not to stir the pot even when it's off the flame and it's fully cooked. He did not bring down this din. It's actually a little bit interesting. Could be I missed it, but it's a little bit interesting that he doesn't bring that down. But he's asking a different thing because we're saying it's toiv yaseh. So what happens? Okay, Rabbi, toivs are for someone else. I'm going to follow the ikra halacha. Am I allowed to stir it and then put it back on the flame? So he asks. He doesn't understand why that's mutter, although according to the Kolalim, it would come out that it is mutter. V'shov Amr. Toiv. It's a toiv not to do it. That's Lashon Mishnah Berurah. That's the law. Again, Nachum will be very clear. The Lashon Mishnah Berurah is you're never allowed to stir a pot, even though it's fully cooked and even though it's off the flame. It's not aser. Zok to Mishnah Berurah. I think the Lashon is Yoser Toiv not to. I don't remember the exact Lashon. I didn't look it up. So he's pointing out that it should be an iser if you're putting it back on. It should be a proper iser. Take it out. Correct. Not stir it, but take it out. But again, he didn't mention this nikud over here. He's the shtickle gloss is over. I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. Let's go slowly. Middle of our over here. The agos that's aser is even fully cooked. Is why the other litais that's why people are going to make mistakes. So one of the reasons Hashem Zalman gives. That's why the Bishul called Tzarkai. So the point of the story is, it's a big problem, and we will leave it at that. And yeah, let's continue. We go back into one more Ara in Ha'ara Kuf. He says something very important. Let's say you have a kugel. In 2 lines at the bottom. In Shemiras Shabbos, Rav Yadler from Arzi Abira, who quotes from Rav Shem Zaman Arbach. The pashtida mevusheles bekedera. You have a cooking pashtida. Pashtida is like a cholent. Mutter lachtoich. You're allowed to cut it. Gam kishiyah mezgabi eish. Why? Kivan sha'meichel shel gabi eish yavish umevashal. It's a dry meichel. There's nothing that can happen. Ein misham hagasa. So you have a big massive kugel. Kugel you'd be allowed to take directly off. There's no potential problem of hagasa on a kugel. He finishes at the end of Sif Lamachas. It's, let's say you have a scenario, you have a problem. It's Asr Lachas K'deira because the flame is not covered, like we saw in Sif Chaf. Now we already know what can you do. You could create a covering on Shabbos. Let's say you don't have a covering. Let's say you don't have foil. Yesh makom lahakel to do what? Ulahaitzi min atav shel bekav oy b'matzekes b'tinai she'am natav shel v'shekol tzarkai. If it's fully cooked, yesh makom to take the food, the food, even when it's on the flame. Where does this come from? In Arak of Beis, he says this is the Heilige Chazoin Ish. This is an important kula. This is also, he says, in a case you can't put it back. Other Svarim quote, let's say it's a massive cholent. often at, let's say, a Sham Zachar, you might have this story of a massive chalent, and the person in the kitchen, Pasha, can't take it off and put it back on. So there's a makkah to be able to serve it directly from the pot. Now, one certainly should be careful that when they're serving it from that pot, not to mix it. What I mean by that is there's different ways of serving. You could serve and mix all in one. So, maybe normally we wouldn't be so violent because normally it's off the flame. But here, if it's on the flame, certainly one should have a little bit more care in how he's going to serve. But that is a potential kula. One last sif lamitas points out, or some zalmin mayim retucha veim cham. Let's say boiling hot water. And this could happen. Let's say your urn breaks. This happened once. I mean, I'm sure it happened many times. Personally, I was Eicha one time. The urn breaks, meaning the spigot breaks. Okay, so it's boiling water all over the place. Okay, we figured that out. But now, tachlis, you want a coffee. What do you do now? So you're allowed to open the top, take a ladle, and take out the water. But wait, it's ala ish. So he says, you're allowed to take out with a ladle. Even it's on the fire. Then even allowed to put if there's anything left in the ladle back inside. If that was your das, meaning if you fulfill other conditions of chazara, if that was your das and it's not fully cold, then you'd even be allowed to put it back. In the Hara Kavdality points out, in Astam, of course, that's your Stam Das, is to put it back. And old school, you have a big pot of water on the flame and you don't have an urn. This would be your eight. Let's say you go away somewhere and you don't have an urn and it's Erev Shabbos and you want to have coffee the next morning. So what do? You turn on the flame, you take a big pot of water, you leave it boiling there in Kol Tov. Everything is good. How are you going to get it out? So let's say it's not even covered. You don't even have a blech. It's not a problem. You're allowed to take it out with a ladle. The reason is because there's not going to be any hagasa happening because it's all water. Now, it is interesting. He only talked about water. He does not talk about soup. Could be, we'll get to there eventually. Parenthetically, he points out over here by the star, what type of ladle should you use? You should use a stam ladle, not basar and not cholov. Now, the reason for that is because I guess he's talking about a fleshig pot and you want to use it for coffee. I don't know why he just throws it in. Ha'ar kafei, he points out Sadi Beis, lechatchil yishlach rak im akafi ben yoimag. V'avim yish samach l'mayim neged akaf, you should still be machmer. I think what he's talking about is, let's say you have a big pot of water which is in a fleshig pot and you want to use a milchig ladle, it's not lechatchila, even if it's 60 times the ladle. Of course, we know that din. And even if it's not ben yaima, it's still not lechatchila. He's just being practical because often you're going to have milchis, fleishiks, and whatnot. So that is how you would get the hot water out in Mirza Hashem.